These are the top 20 most expensive Lincoln pennies sold during 2024. We'll kick things off with not exactly at the beginning of the series, but very nearly there, with this 1910 matte-proof example of the Lincoln cent, the second only year of issue in the series, and a beautifully red example of this unique finish that only lasted a few years. Graded by PCGS as proof 67 plus red, it is tied for the finest known and used to be a part of the fantastic red copper collection. It was sold by Heritage in their August ANA sale for $22,800. And then, from nearly the beginning of the Wheat Penny series, we move right along to nearly the beginning of the Memorial Cent series, with this 1960 small date variety from the Denver Mint. Of the two, the small and large date, the small date type for the 1960 penny is definitely the more difficult to obtain, at least when concerning yourself with the Philadelphia Mint. This small date penny was graded by PCGS as MS68 red, and at auction in May it was sold for $25,875 by Great Collections. 1909 was the first year of issue for the Lincoln penny, and it was a busy year for the denomination as well, not least of which was the seeming controversy concerning the VDB initials on the reverse of the coin, where production had to be abruptly halted and the initials removed before minting could continue without the initials. This stunning rainbow-toned coin was one of those first coins minted with the designer's initials at the Philadelphia Mint. Today, graded by PCGS as MS68+, it was sold at auction for $29,250 in January. Then we make it to a fantastic error coin on the list. This is a 1983 Lincoln cent that was struck on a bronze planchet. This is a year after the US Mint switched production of the penny from a 95% copper coin to a coin that was just 0.8% copper coating over a zinc core coin, making this an extremely rare wrong planchet error. Graded by PCGS as MS65 red, it was sold in July by Great Collections for the sum of $29,250. And then we have, I suppose, a relatively modern coin, at least compared to the rest of the entries on this list, the 1975 S-proof cent. Now, I can practically hear you saying, hold on, that's not a rare coin. I've got one sitting in a proof set right now. Well, maybe in a different accent, but you get the idea. And of course, you would be correct. Looking at the population report, NGC has graded 630 of these coins and PCGS a total of 3,028. And out of those combined 3,658 coins, only one, this example, managed to grade as a perfect proof 70 deep cameo, making it the sole finest known Pop 1 with no competition. So when it was placed up for auction in December, Great Collections was able to secure a final price of $30,375 for this coin. Lincoln penny mintages would reach a peak in 1919 with 392 million coins, a record that would stand until 1940, but even 1918 had no reason to be shy with a mintage of 288 million coins. But most of those coins were not exactly well preserved. This coin, however, is not your ordinary 1918 penny, extremely well struck with near perfect details and a grade of MS68 red from PCGS. It is a registry set collector's dream coin, a fact also borne out by the price of $31,200 that it achieved at auction in March from Stack's Bowers. And speaking of finest known coins, let's keep that streak going with this 1943 Steely. This is not an error coin, not a variety, just a normal 1943 steel penny, except for the fact that it is once again tied for the finest known example of the type. At a grade of MS68 plus from PCGS, this is about as close to a perfect steel cent that you are going to encounter, and in November it was sold at auction for $32,374. Unlike some of the previous coins, the 1914 Denver Mint wheat cent is actually a semi-key date for the series, with a mintage of merely 1,193,000 coins, which for the Lincoln Penny series is very low. Add to that this coin's fairly stellar grade of MS65 plus from PCGS, and it was little surprise when it was sold at auction in July for $37,125. And then we have our first true variety coin on this list, the 1970s large date double die obverse cent, and a truly spectacular example of this variety on top of that as well. Here you can clearly see the doubling expressed on the letters of Liberty as well as on the letters of In God We Trust, where the doubling displays towards the left of the letters. Graded by PCGS as MS66 plus red, this amazing coin was sold by Heritage Auctions in August for the sum of $38,400. An example of one of the most famous variety coins ever created, and a true superstar in the Lincoln Penny series is featured here now. None other than the 1955 double die obverse cent, displaying its incredibly wide spread on virtually every single design element of the obverse of the coin, with the date surely being its calling card, so to speak. This example was graded as MS65 red by PCGS, and in March of 2024 it was sold at auction by Stax Bowers for a total of $45,600. At a mintage of 28 million coins, the 1926 Denver Mint cent can hardly be described as a rare coin in absolute terms. Mint state coins, however, are somewhat harder to come by, and when encountered, they typically have weak strike details and are plagued by black carbon spots on the surface for some reason. This coin, fortunately enough, is free from all such concerns. Graded as MS66 plus red by PCGS, it was sold in December by Great Collections for $51,750. Following the 1955 coin we just looked at a moment ago, the next most famous variety coin in the Lincoln Penny series has to be the 1969's double die obverse cent, like the one on display right now. With its strong doubling on the date and the rest of the obverse letters, it can hardly be mistaken for any other coin. This splendid example was graded as MS63 red by PCGS, meaning there are only 5 finer known red examples, for which Heritage was able to secure a final price at auction of $66,000. The second and final matte-proof coin on this list is now seen here. It is the 1909 VDB example, of which only 1,194 coins were reportedly minted, making it one of the rarest proof Lincoln cents. It does share the same story as the 1909 coin we looked at before, but instead here it is the matte-proof finish instead of the regular business strike intended for circulation. Graded by PCGS as Proof 66 Plus with CAC endorsement, this beautiful coin was sold by Heritage in August for $66,000. And it seems that no list like this would be complete without at least a mention of the venerable 1922 No D Strong Reverse Wheat Cent. This variety coin is practically unique as an issue due to both the manner of its creation and discovery, the missing D mint mark for the Denver Mint, as Denver was in fact the only mint producing pennies in that year, this example of the coin was graded by PCGS as MS64 red and brown and was sold at auction by Heritage in January for $72,000. One of the biggest problems facing the discerning collector looking to acquire a high-level 1923 S penny is the fact that most of the coins were poorly struck from worn-out dies with improper die spacing in the press itself. This coin, despite being graded as MS65 red by PCGS, is no exception to that. The details are soft at best, and strike doubling is seen throughout, indicating that die chatter was quite pronounced when the coin was being struck. All the same, its high grade makes it conditionally rare, and as such, it was sold at auction in September for $75,937. Now, as we have already established, the 1909 VDB coins are a bit of a delicacy within the Lincoln Penny series, but for none of the variants is this more true than for the 1909 S VDB penny, as the San Francisco Mint was only able to mint 484,000 circulation strike coins before they were ordered to halt production. This pristine example of this rare issue was here graded by PCGS as MS67 red and was able to secure a final price at auction in December of $94,061. Alright, so before, when I said that the 09 was the last matte-proof coin, looks like I might have been mistaken, because here is one more. This is the 1916 matte-proof cent, and somewhat appropriately, it was also the final year in which the mint was actually to make the matte-proof coins as a whole, too. It had a mintage of only 1,050 coins, as demand for the issue plummeted through the years. This stunning example is today graded by PCGS as Proof 66 plus red, and at auction in October, it was sold by Great Collections for $101,250. The steel cent from 1943 is something that every new collector learns about fairly early on. I mean, it is a fascinating one-year issue, so rightly so. But what we see now is a steel penny dated 1944, making it a rare error coin, minted by accident in the wrong year. PCGS estimates that around 25 to perhaps 30 coins like this may exist today, although the population report hovers around 15 known examples. This coin was graded by PCGS as MS64, making it tied for the finest known. It was sold at auction in May by Heritage for $108,000. The 1926 S Lincoln cent is, despite a mintage of 4.5 million coins, relatively obtainable in lower grades, though at a slight premium. But in mint state grades, it is a genuine challenge. And as with the Denver Mint counterpart we looked at earlier, strike quality was not exactly great. As can be seen here, the collar is all but missing, and the details in the hair and the beard are mushy and indistinct at best, despite the coin's good grade of MS65 red, for which it saw a closing price at auction in December of $137,812. And then we come to the most expensive Lincoln cent to have sold at public auction in 2024. And perhaps it should be no surprise then that this is a 1943 copper cent, the most infamous mint era of the last 100 years. A coin struck accidentally and unintentionally on a bronze or copper planchet during a year that the penny was intended to be struck exclusively on the steel planchets. This example is from the Philadelphia Mint, graded and authenticated by PCGS as AU58, and formerly an extract of the much-lauded Simpson collection too. It was sold by Great Collections in September and attained a final price of $286,875. If you like this, then maybe have a look at the most expensive Lincoln cents of all time right here next. For the World Numismatic News, I am Numisman saying thank you for watching, keep collecting, and have a fantastic day.